enhanced work ethic helped Nick achieve so much more in his career and to inspire his mentees to further their own success. Hey, with a title like Flying Sparks, please help me welcome Toastmaster Nick Lacani.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. Tonight, I'm going to tell you the story of Jim Sparks. It goes back to 25, 28, long time back. Just after I graduated, I went back to Manchester, and, when I was at college or university over here, I was a lastminute.com student. I did everything last minute. Handed things on exactly on time, got them done. I had okay grades, but not great. I really wasn't engaged. What changed? Well, in one of my first roles, I actually found and my friend met a guy called Jim Sparks. And what he did was he inspired me to love my work. He became my mentor for work ethic and professionalism. He benefited too. It's always a two-way street. I actually helped him learn to swim. In 5 weeks, in 10 lessons, I taught him to swim. Also, I helped him talk to girls, but to be honest with you, it was a blind leading the blind. Let me tell you a bit more about Jim. And I'll tell you them in 3 ways. First of all, Flying Sparks. Why is it Flying Sparks? Well, you get a foundry or a metalworking area where you're working with metal and sparks are flying off and it's really colorful. Well, that's what Jim was. Jim had not shoulder length hair. He had longer hair. He was he loved heavy metal. And what he did was he had his hair long. He also rode a bike, a cycle. And he would actually ride down the street and his hair would flow. He'd have a bandana, make sure that the hair doesn't get in his eyes, but it would flow like a lion's mane behind him. What he taught me by just going down, cycling, he actually lived 50 miles away from his work. He would cycle to and from work almost every day. 50 miles, and it wasn't a straight road and it wasn't a flat road. He would have to go up big hills, almost amazingly bad weather. What he taught me with that, the lasting memory of that, is that you've got to keep going. He taught me to keep going. When the going got tough, as his protege, I couldn't quit, because you know what? He would never quit. Every time he rode his bike, he always got home. Keep going. Now, the second way that I can actually tell you how he affected my life was to be prepared. So what actually happened was that with his biking, he would actually go with his brother and a couple of friends on a biking holiday, not to a resort somewhere or to a beach somewhere. He would actually go all the way to the Alps or the Pyrenees in Europe. He would actually go and every day ride, 100, 150 kilometers just for fun. I mean, how crazy is that? What he taught me with that was that, first of all, biking's not much for me. Secondly, he's a bit nuts. But thirdly, be prepared. He taught me to be thoroughly prepared in my work, ready for my students, to create high quality course materials for them. And in turn, with the effort that I put in there, I learned to love my work. I learned to be prepared, and I learned to share my love with anybody who cared to come along. Be prepared. Now, the third way I can show you that he impacted me was just in time. Like I said, I was a lastminute.com student. in some ways. Perhaps I still am. But what he taught me was, if you have a deadline, hit the deadline. If you're not going to hit the deadline, let the person know well as soon as you can, well ahead of time, you can't hit it. And go and meet them before the deadline would have been up to explain and also to work out a plan to get over it. But the more times I actually worked with him, the more times he actually showed me how to organize myself to hit my deadlines, the more I hit my deadlines, the more I was ready, the more confident I was, and away I went. He taught me to be professional.
Oh, no, that's not right.
Biggest impact that he can actually give me. He taught me to be professional, to care about my work, and to care about what I actually delivered in terms of work, in terms of speaking, in terms of anything to everybody. The impact and importance of being a protege, is just mind-blowing. In summary, you can actually have a relationship with your mentor. There's mutual sharing, there's benefit for both. Like I said, I taught him how to swim, I kind of taught him how to talk to girls, but more than anything, we always kept learning from each other, we kept pushing each other, we kept encouraging each other, but he would never make decisions for me. He always let me choose what I was doing and when, but he would be there to support me unconditionally and then give me advice when I sought it. He never overstepped his bounds. He never became my coach. There was a big difference there. I love him. I miss him. That's my story of my flying sparks. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Nick, for sharing that. It sounds like Jim Sparks was a pretty major, big influence in your life, from the tiniest parts to an overall aspect. Thank you for sharing that. Our next speaker will be Tracy Kawa. Could everyone make sure that you are muted, Bethany and David? Thank you. Our next speaker will be Tracy Kawa, and she will be speaking from the Effectively Coaching Level 1 Mastering Fundamentals, Evaluation and Feedback. This is her second speech, as was mentioned earlier, and the title of her speech will be Transitioning with Ease. Tracy Kawa, author of 7 Pillars of Reinvention and developer of the Kawa Assessment, takes us on a compelling journey of career transitions and why it's important to assess yourself and have a standout resume. Please help me welcome Tracy.
Tracy, before you begin, I am taking over as the timer.
Okay, and I forgot to change the title on the, on the original page, which is actually, lovely, Branding for Career Acceleration. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, thank you for joining me for Branding for Acceleration of Your Career. I'm Tracy Kawa of Kawa Community Partners. How do you identify your brand? First, we have to define what a brand is. It's how you market yourself in your career. It's your commitment of consistency that you deliver to prospective employers or your customer base if you're a business owner. Your brand is your story. It's how you deliver your value, how you define who you are and what you've accomplished. What's your story? We determine our story and we interpret it through our resume in our careers, because our resumes explain our timeline of experience and education and growth over time. The executive summary that you find at the top of your resume is actually just the beginning of your brand. I'd like to introduce you to Mindy. Mindy was the Florida State PTA president, a phenomenal woman. And as her tenure with the PTA was ending, she wanted to obtain an executive director position. She came to me with her resume in hand. She took my assessment. We went to work on her resume. And I found that there was this gap between what her skills and her expertise were in and what her resume said. So I made a couple of suggestions. And I said, Mindy, I don't really think that you're cut out for the executive director position. I think you should really go for a business development director position. She said, oh my goodness, I never thought of that. In turn, we tweaked her resume, built in the right brand and the right story. And within 6 weeks, she had her ideal job position as business development director at the March of Dimes in North Carolina. And she moved closer to where her daughter and her grandchildren are. That's what we call a win-win-win. Meet Daniel, another client of ours. He was a flower importer, and he really wasn't sure what his next steps were going to be. He took our assessment. We looked at his resume. We started to identify, again, with him, the gaps that were poking through. Where would be the highest use of this man's time and talent? We knew what his strengths were, but then we found out some things that were in his blind spot. And we were able to open up a dialogue and communicate about his brand as being that director with that 100,000-foot view and how to build a team around him that would function very effectively. With that, we created his ideal resume, and happy to say that Daniel's starting his ideal role, I believe, February 28th. I'd like to introduce you to Victoria. Victoria is a phenomenal young woman who really just wanted to find out what her market value was. She was just testing the waters. She took our assessment. We discussed her results. We started revamping her resume, and we found that she was stuck in sales, and that's what was making her miserable. She had all this amazing talent in operations and risk assessment and marketing a business. She wanted to step out of sales and go fully into where her passion was, which was much more operational. We revamped her resume, and she went into an interview and got an amazing offer. But the story doesn't end there. Her current employer came back to her and counter-offered her. But unfortunately, she said, I already made a commitment and I can't pass it up. It's an offer that's too good to refuse. I called her the morning that she was starting her new job, and she said, Tracy, you wouldn't believe what happened. There was another change of events. I said, what happened, Victoria? Well, she said, my employer came back to me with a $30,000 pay increase and a new job title for me. He said I would no longer have to do cold calls. I could just simply manage the clients that I had already brought in and step fully into operational departments with my new title. So exciting. Happy to say that she stayed where she is, and she's so much more thrilled with her position than she ever was before. I'm really proud of these 3 clients of mine because they did one thing. There was one common thread. They all weren't afraid to look into their blind spots and to brand themselves, to step fully into what their full capacity was, in what they knew their ideal role would be, where they would be the most consistent, and where they would be the most empowered. As they took their professional view of themselves, they were able to find out what their transferable skills were, and they were able to assess themselves for continued success. The assessment showed them where their values were in alignment, what their values even were, and where their values were out of alignment. It showed them their ideal stages of growth, their ideal company culture, along with their work styles, their strengths, their competencies, and their selling style and their decision-making process. A lot of information to uncover and put to great use. Imagine that you can identify what your dream job is, where you know you have the skills and you know that there's so much more that you can grow in that position. What will it take for you to brand yourself, market yourself, and step into your dream job? At Cowa Community Partners, we bring 20 years in branding, combined with 6 different behavioral sciences in the Cowa assessment. Let us brand you with our seamless process. We offer professional coaching and resume writing services. Again, I'm Tracy Cowa. Does anybody have any questions for me? Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Tracy. That was excellent. If you could, yes. I think that you used your intuition in finding what the right roles were for the people that you created great influence on by, exploring them and finding their blind spots. Thank you for sharing that. Our third speaker tonight will be Magna, and she will be speaking from the new, let's see.
Engaging humor.
I have it. Oh, right. I have, it was put in kind of late, so I have it on here. Okay, so Magna will be speaking from the Dynamic Leadership Level 1, Mastering Fundamentals. She will be giving us an icebreaker. Her title will be No Ego Allowed. Magna is actually working on the new engaging humor path. Can you imagine that? Magna, you are inspiring us all. Welcome, Magna.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Now, a little caveat. If you are a sensitive viewer, maybe it's time to leave now, because this speech is a little bit un-PC. I want to start my speech with eavesdropping. Sometimes you get more than what you bargained for. I overheard this little girl telling to her best friend, "I'm never going to have babies." And the other kid said, "Why?" She said, "My mom said it's taking 9 months to download." Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Women would know, and some men would know too, but when it's time that we're getting full term with a pregnancy, we are just too eager to download. But sometimes I think a little bit of extra baking in the oven might go a long, long way, especially if it can save the mom's ego. It's just my theory, but listen to this. Many years ago, of course, our son Jay was preschool, and we were at the shops in a different city altogether. We were on holiday, and as it's quite common, dads don't like shopping that much. So hubby was not with us. It was just Jay and myself. And we were shopping everywhere. In those days, toilets were sort of far and few between. So I got this cunning little plan. I grabbed Jay by the hand because I had to go. And I went to a staff person and I said, "Please, this is quite urgent. This little boy has got to go to the loo." And he looked at me. He said, "No, I don't need it." I had to save face very quickly. "No," she said, "under no circumstances, it's only for staff." Oh, my ego. She knew it was not my son that was in need. She could see on my face and the beading sweat drops that the mum had a problem. Then I decided to boldly go where I've never gone before, and that is to a sort of a cheaper coffee shop. And they serve tomato sauce in those days in these big plastic tomatoes. After I've entered the shop, the relief was so great. And my son was standing in front of the showcase there, and he was speaking with his little finger, a frosted Black Forest cake. He got his cake on a plate and he toodled off to the table, and I was paying, and when I hopped over on my high heel shoes, what did I see? He grabbed that tomato and he covered that Black Forest cake with tomato sauce. Now you might say, listen, this is not a joke, this is quite serious, and I do agree with you. The staff looked at me and I thought, and they made comments, and I thought to myself, they think that I'm sort of a mom that really don't care about what my kid is eating. So I decided, how am I going to rescue the situation? So being a woman who's not short on any plans, I said to the first lady, the first waitress there, please bring me Worcester sauce as well, because he would like his cake with tomato and Worcester sauce. Not long after that, we've decided, no, we've got to get out of there. The sooner the better. A next little incident that I want to tell you about is our other son, also preschool, had the bad habit when we go to the shops to ask for Vienna sausages, because they got it at nursery school. And I would have this little sentence, no, I will buy it next time when I've got money. So one year, while we had guests over, it was my birthday, and there was a little lull in the conversation. Our son said, Mom, when we have money next time when we've got money, can we please buy Vienna sausages? Now it's already been established. I'm a mom who doesn't care what my kids eat. And I am not really a mom that's that caring, because I deny my son a Vienna sausage. But that was not the end of it. Other son, I was driving there in Pretoria, 4 lanes in one way, and people came from the back, and they were hooting in their cars and waving furiously. And I thought, well, did my fame spread like this? Because I just won a court case, and I was sitting there like the queen, and I was waving because this was going on for some time. And then I looked in the back mirror and I saw my son in the back sitting there, and he had a smile like that of a little angel. I decided to stop the car. I had to stop the car because I knew something was cooking. And then I remember my handbag is on the back seat. Stopped the car, got into the back, and let's put it like this. I wish the earth could swallow me at that second. Because here I am, I think I'm so important, like the queen. Everyone is waving to me. In his little hand, he had a feminine product. And he was swinging this for everyone who came past. And everyone thought this is really wonderful. And me being so important, I didn't realize what was going on in the back. Yes, no ego allowed. If you're a mom, forget about ego. Back to you, Mrs. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Magna. I think that you definitely created many tiny seeds of memory for us, from the cake to the waving thing to the 9-month 9-month download. There are a lot of little seeds in there for us to remember. Thank you. I think you hit your mark on keeping us humored. Mr. Timer, Roger, how'd the speakers do? Did everybody fall in time?
All 3 speakers qualify. Magna hit exactly at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. No time there. All 3 speakers qualify.
That's great. So then if you could send that secret vote to Janita. It has to be in private mode, okay? Thank you. Vote on your favorite speaker. We will next get into our table topics, which is always fun, especially with Mr. Andy Byrne. DTM Andy Byrne, take it away.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call on first Azil. Are you still there? And here is your question. What is the difference between intuition and ESP, or extrasensory perception?
Can you explain what is ESP?
Okay. Intuition. Tell us the difference between intuition versus ESP, which is the abbreviation for extrasensory perception, sort of like a psychic, that you know what's going on and you can perceive future events.
Well, my intuition worked well today because I knew I would be having fun at the online presenters club. Difference between ESP and intuition, I think it's you should naturally have intuition because you always sense that something might happen, even if you don't perceive that. ESP, it's like, how can you say, talent? When you exactly know about that, what is going to happen. So I think even you don't trust your intuition, you can make some mistakes in your life, but when you have this you might prevent those mistakes. Thank you so much, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much, Azil. The next person is Jason. Are you ready?
Yep.
Jason, are you there?
I'm here.
Jason, your question is, what gives your life meaning?
How long do we have? 1 to 2 minutes. Well, what gives my life meaning, I would think, are my relationships with my family, certainly my spouse. I think when I wake up in the morning, I think about how I can contribute to my life and their lives. Ultimately, I think if you're working to 9 to 5 and you're just consumed in your life and you're just trying to burn life away just to make a paycheck, then something gets lost. We get lost in the experiences of life and those relationships that are most meaningful to you. I know it's a little cliche, but you think about the deathbed scenario where there's someone to ask you like, oh, what do you regret about life? Nothing really. The answer is never, oh, I regret I didn't work an extra hour, or if I didn't do this other job. So what gives my life meaning, I think like what many of us, is the relationships and the experiences that you experience with your family, traveling, great, having nice family activities together, Thanksgiving, the holidays, are all great opportunities to really give your life meaning and to contribute to the history of your family and to fulfill your life and just live a very wonderful, fulfilled life. Thank you.
Nicole.
Yes, hello there.
Okay, in famous movies like Star Wars, there's this overall theme of light versus dark. How would you characterize happiness? Can you have happiness without sadness, pleasure without pain, peace without war?
So, You'd like me to answer which part of that? How do I characterize can you have happiness without sadness?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So how do you, well, I'll pose it as a question to the audience, although I don't expect you to answer. How do you truly appreciate when good things happen to you? Right? And I'm going to talk from personal experience where I find that I experience life in waves. I have, for example, I'm going to be a grandmother in April of this year.
Wow.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is the day that my daughter found out that she was pregnant, I was actually in urgent care, finding out that I had, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And I remember laying on the examination table, she was in the room, and I saw her eyes roll, So I'm like, oh my God, something's really wrong with me. And she left the room. Anyway, days late, not even days later, but let's say 2 months later, she lets me know that was the day that she found out that she was pregnant. And she actually went to the doctor after leaving me at urgent care because she too felt, not so great. So that's one of the scenarios where I can say I experienced happiness, right? And I can truly appreciate this gift, knowing that I had major surgery 2 weeks ago with major complications. I'm here to sit here with you all, speak with you tonight, and know that I came out of it. And in April, I will be here to see my only grandchild be born. So yes, we do experience some things that make us sad, but those experiences, you take them, you accept them, so that way they allow you to reflect and appreciate when these wonderful things happen. And they don't have to be major life-changing milestones in order for you to celebrate, right? So the sad things or the dark things, I'm going to say that, yes, you can have, I barely remember the question because I did take my pain meds. So yes, you can. I think they go hand in hand, as much as we don't want to deal with maybe darkness or the sadness, but I feel like they enhance when the good things happen to us. They allow us to have that appreciation. Thank you.
Great job. Joy, are you still on the phone call? Joy?
Yes, I am.
Okay, here's your question. What's the one thing you want people to know and remember you for? If somebody was asked to write your eulogy, what would they say? What would you like people to remember you for?
Probably I would like them to remember me for being a kind and helpful person, because that's my ambition, to be present for those people that are around me. And most of the time I even extend it to that when I meet new people, I think that I'm supposed to meet them, that there is some either lesson to be learned or something I can give them to these people. So probably it's this kind of a presence and kindness, that I'm willing to listen to people and to be present to them, and then give them if there is something I can give them to them, or receive if this is what I'm supposed to do in that situation. Back to Mr. Table Topics Master.
Well, Teresa, we've done 4 table topics. Do you want us to go forward or stop right here?
Stop right there. It's time to
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Table Topic Master. Our speakers in the table topics were Asil, Jason, Nicole, and Joy. Mr. Timer, how did we do?
All 4 speakers qualify. We have both ends of the spectrum, with Joy coming in exactly at 1 minute and Nicole at exactly 2:30. All qualify.
Wow, that is really good. So now we get to do our secret ballots again. So if you can send your ballot for Asil, Jason, Nicole, or Joy to Jacinta in her private secret message. Okay, so it's now time to go to the most important part of the meeting. Well, the second most important part, maybe the third. It will be our evaluations. Mr. General Evaluator, DTM David Carr, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Therese. Well, leading off, we have Jim Barber will be evaluating Nick Lahai. Jim, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. My fellow Toastmasters, our many guests this evening, and especially, of course, Toastmaster Nick Lahai. Nick, I'm going to evaluate you in two different things, two different areas here. First, on your presentation skills, and then we'll get to mentoring in a moment. As far as your presentation skills go, of course, they were all top-notch. I loved your conversational manner. Your use of pauses is terrific. All of your vocals are wonderful. What I especially liked is your opening, and it's a difference of a choice of one word here. You opened with, "Tonight I'm going to tell you the story of Jim Sparks." Now, I normally don't like people opening a presentation by telling us what they're going to do. But in this case, it worked. If you had said, "Tonight I'm going to tell you about Jim Sparks," that wouldn't have worked. But you said, "Tonight I'm going to tell you the story of Jim Sparks." And we all love stories. From children, we've grown to adore stories. And so when you told us that you're going to tell us the story of Jim Sparks, we all set up and we were getting ready. Oh, we're eager to hear a story. And you carried that forward throughout your presentation, and you closed with, "That's my story of Flying Sparks." Well done. Now, talking about why Jim Sparks was your mentor, you didn't jump into what the things that you learned from him. That was good, but I liked your approach better, where you simply introduced us to Jim Sparks. You got us to know him. You showed us why you liked him, why he was such an influence on you. You described him riding the bike with a bandana, his hair, I love this phrase, hair flowing like a lion's mane. After you got done, we felt that we knew him. We had never met him, but we felt that we knew him and we liked him, and we could see where he would have an influence on a person. After that, then you got into what he taught me was. He taught me to be professional. He taught me this, he taught me that. You didn't go into all the details of how he did it or anything. That wasn't important. He was a mentor. He described various things to you. You communicated those things to us. Well done. It was a great presentation, and you described your mentoring very, very effectively. Having a suggestion for improvement, I've only got one, and you've made a liar out of me by repositioning yourself. When you were giving your presentation, you were a little far back from the camera, kind of like this. And I would like, there you go, that's better. I would like to see you a little bit closer to the camera so you can make more effective use of the visual screen. But that's my only suggestion. This was a terrific presentation. I'm looking forward to the next one. Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, thank you, Jim. For this club, we think it's so important to give immediate and meaningful feedback that we have Graham Cairns pulled over by the side of the road somewhere in Australia, who will be evaluating Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, ladies and gentlemen, and particularly Tracy. I have to say I am disappointed that I wasn't at this meeting 2 weeks ago, because then I would have been able to see Tracy's first version of this speech. I'm disappointed that I didn't see it, because I understand from some of the comments that the improvements have been amazing. And I have to say, I agree that the speech was amazing, so I'm assuming that the improvements have as well. I note that Tracy was asked by her previous evaluator to lose some of the slides, so I gather that there were more slides involved, and to lose her direct pitch with prices for her business, instead trying to build interest and build a sense of anticipation. Both of those were done quite effectively. I thought the structure of Tracy's speech today was really good. It had a nice structure. It started where at the beginning and it ended at the end. Now, that sounds logical, but you'd be surprised. Well, actually, in this club, you probably wouldn't be surprised at how often that doesn't happen. But it was a good structure. It was easy to follow. And one of the things that I enjoyed most about this is that it did not contain any jargon. Now, it's very easy when you're pitching a business to get involved with the jargon of our particular industry. And I noticed that Tracy didn't do that. She kept the language simple, easy to follow. She also told some great stories, and these really were great stories because every story that she told was relatable. We could see ourselves, okay, that's not a position that I've ever been in, but I could imagine myself in that position. I've never had anybody offer me a $30,000 pay rise, but yeah, I reckon I would take it too, particularly if they were going to mean that I didn't have to do cold calling anymore. Oh, yes. So really good stories and really good examples. An observation about the slides, and I know that the slides was something that was an issue last time. I actually put Tracy into a large window because I assume that this presentation would normally be delivered face-to-face, in which case the slides being there is fine. But for an online presentation, I would have preferred if Tracy had gone to the slide and then back to her live, and then back to a slide, and then back to her live. Yes, it is an acquired skill, but it becomes much more effective because if Tracy was only in the small thumbnail, then we wouldn't have seen the excellent body language and the absolutely superb gestures that she was making. So my suggestion, above all else, is if you're going to be presenting this online, go in and out of the slides. There were a couple of hesitations. They weren't terrible, but go back and watch the video. You'll see what I'm talking about. But what I liked most of all about this speech, the passion that Tracy showed, not just for her business, but also for her clients. And that's the sort of thing that would make me think, maybe I should take a look at Kawa Enterprises or the business name, which I didn't jot down because I'm not likely to use your services. But if I was in the market, I might well do so because of that passion. Mr. General.
All right. Thank you very much, Graham. Our third speech this evening was an icebreaker. And I don't think we really explained to Edith that this was not Magda's first icebreaker. You probably figured that out along the way. But she's making another run through the educational program, so she gets to do an icebreaker. She gets to start all over again. And evaluating her will be Edith Leva, who was one of my very first mentors in Toastmasters. Thank you for being here, Edith.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. It is my pleasure today to evaluate Magna for the first time in this club, and I just met her. I can tell that the title caught my attention. No Ego Allowed is a very well chosen title, I think, appropriate for the speech. The caveat, I like that because it created some suspense. It created curiosity, definitely caught my attention because I'm thinking, what are we going to hear today? So that puts us in a state of alert, if I might say that. But it wasn't that bad. The caveat is good that you have it there, but it really is not that terrible what we heard. I'd like the analogy that Magna did with the download was very appropriate to this meeting because we're using technology and this was related to technology, so it was really good. I don't know if this was your intuition, Magna, or if you did it on purpose, but the fact that you used some food-related stories related to your children, there's a common thread there, your children and food-related stories, not all of them, but a couple of them. That was, I think it was a good choice. If it was done on purpose, it was a very good choice, and if it was just intuition, it came out marvelous. And the theme of your children and the stories, The one thing that I would like that maybe it can be improved is to have maybe a story, a background story, and these little stories entangled in the story, kind of like making a better transition from one story to another, instead of having the sensation. I have this sensation that there were little funny stories that were put together. But if it can be something that relates it more to one another, maybe the summer of 1966, this is the no ego allowed summer, for instance, and this is all that happened. Vocal variety, I think I would have liked to have a little more vocal variety, more pauses to create a little more suspense in the appropriate situation. A little more, even though there was enthusiasm, of course, it was very funny, but I think I wanted to have a little more different voice pitches, different intonation to according to each situation. The stories were appropriate, they were funny, it was something that we can relate to, and it shows that you can find humor in circumstances that otherwise would have been tremendous, a tremendous, really down story. It could have made you angry, it could have made you really hurt your ego, but the way that are told, it seems that you really had fun and your ego was not hurt. It was good structure, it was easy to follow, and it was done very smoothly. The story was very smooth. It's a general evaluator.
All right. Thank you, Edith.
You're welcome.
Much. Let's hear from our counter, Kel Brahensky. Have I retained my title tonight?
You did just fine. Unfortunately, you lost your title. Teresa, 1 and, 1 okay, 2 so's. I think once, twice. Tracy, 2 ands. Nick, 2 actuallys, 1 so. David Carr, 3 ahs, 1 but, 1 and. Magna, 2 1 3 ands, 2 you knows. Nicole, 2 so's, 2 ands, 1 4 ahs and 2 you knows. Nicole, I think you win tonight. Graham, it's an honor, by the way, here at this club. Graham, 8 ahs, 1 so. Asel, 1 3 Very good considering the tough question. And Edith, 2 4 ahs, 2 and 4 ands. Thank you so much. Back to you.
All right, terrific. Let's hear from our grammarian, which is one of our guests, Bethany. Can you unmute, Bethany?
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Perfect. So I had the grammarian rule, and I've heard the word of the day 3 times tonight in the course of the speeches and the meeting. One by Edith. She said it during her evaluation, and then twice in table topics when the question that Rainey gave, I believe. So that was a great job. And then I didn't get her first name, but who had the first question, she used the word too. So that was awesome. And everyone was very clear to understand, and you guys all had used good vocal variety. I enjoyed it very much, and keep it up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from our watcher, Dagmara.
Nick, you had great hand gestures. You made sure that they are within the frame. And I really like how you use these gestures to convey emotion and when you were going faster and slower with your speech, you also they followed. So it was very, very nice. And I would only say that the thing that I would try would be your background, because it was a little bit distracting. I think it was your bedroom. So better to have maybe more plain background, or like Roger or Therese, they had some really cool background. Also, there are some people that should watch their angle. For example, Bethany and Diane. This angle that you show yourself in is just give us impression that you're towering over us. So maybe you would like to try to be at the eye level. And Magda, I love your background, and you had amazing gestures. I really love them. You always made sure they're staying within the frame. And Marie Celeste, I had a impression sometimes that you look like a ghost. You're very bright on your face, so you could improve lighting. I also know that my lighting is not great today, but I was exiled from my room, so forgive me. And Tracy, great job with your presentation. Beautiful, powerful colors. The only suggestion is that I had the impression that you use the same slide twice when you talk about Meet Victoria, and then you use the same slide probably or very similar at the end in your CAWA assessment. So you might check that out. It just doesn't seem right when using the same slide, unless there is a reason for that, but I didn't get the relation of this, why it's being used twice. So this is the only thing that I would improve. Otherwise, wonderful. And other people also, you did a great job. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Terrific. We also had a chat monitor this evening. Monica, what was going on in the chat?
There was a lot of back and forth that we had going on during the chat, and we got a good tips and links that everyone can go back and refer to. And if you want to save the chat, go to the More box, the drop down, and you can save the chat to your computer screen, and any links that are in there, you'll be able to find those. Roger, great job getting the times up quickly, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
All right. Let's see. I think that's everybody except for the vote counter, so I'll let our Toastmasters Day call on the vote counter. My only overview comment as General Evaluator is that once again we discovered, or I discovered, that technology will betray you at the exact wrong moment. And so I'm sorry for the static and the squealing and the visual distortion, but I'll try to do better next time. Back to you, Toastmaster of the Day, to wrap up our meeting.
You were talking to me and I was looking at the chat monitor, the chat screen. Thank you for a really, really great meeting. I think that we need to vote on the evaluators, don't we? We had Jim, Graham, and Edith. Did everyone fall within time, Mr. Timer?
Graham and Jim made within time. You got 10 seconds to quickly vote for the very last time for the best evaluator, Jim and Graham. Edith, you came in at, let's see, let me take a quick peek, at 4 minutes and 18 seconds.
Okay. Is there a way, I was accustomed to have a timer tell me the time, but I'm not familiar. Is there a way of knowing?
Okay, can we, real quick, could everybody send your secret ballot to Jacinta so that she can take a look? And then could you tell us?
Let me answer that question real quick. Ask Jacinta tally up the final vote. Great question, Edith, in terms of how do we handle these things. Number one, in each of our little square, you can right click and get to that pin video. You want to pin the person who's doing the timer so that you can see the color changing or whatever they're using. Number two, you can also request a verbal note, as in the timer can say green, yellow, red. That will be a second way to handle timing needs. Just a general answer to everybody.
It is actually one of the trickiest things we've come across in how to run these meetings.
Okay, Jacinta, I've been pronouncing your name wrong, and I would appreciate if you could let us know who the winners are.
Absolutely. It was extremely close this evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests, but I am very, very pleased to announce that our best speaker today was Tracy. Congratulations. Best table topics was Jason. Congratulations, Jason. And for our best evaluator, the winner was Graham. Congratulations, Graham. Congratulations to all our speakers. Everyone did an awesome job today. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jacinta. And that is the end of our meeting. Thank you, everyone. And we could stay around and chit-chat now if you would like. The gavel's down. Woo.
Thank you, Teresa. Our meeting has officially ended. If you need to go, please go ahead and do so. There's no need to be polite in any way. Just do what you need to do. For those of you who can stick around for a few minutes, I would love to hear some of our newcomer visitors to give us some of your comments as to, hey, I love it, I hate it, I don't like this guy, love this guy, whatever. Rainey, I know we don't see your name. If you can unmute yourself and say hello to us and see what you thought of the meeting. Wait. Rainey, go ahead and continue to try to figure that one out. In the meantime,
put in the
Bonnie,
chat. She can't talk right now.
You can't talk. Bonnie, what do you think?
I thought it was a great meeting. This is my first online meeting of any type like this. So the technology is kind of fun to figure out. I'm not sure if I'm doing everything quite correctly, but it looks like it works pretty well.
Excellent. As I dropped a link in the chat box about using what we call the rules of thirds, and if you can go in and use that post and you can read more detail. Bonnie, you are perfect with the rules of thirds. The background perfectly fine, very homey. The only suggestion maybe if somewhere you can maybe twist your computer or webcam so that the light is not exactly on the back of your head.
I was thinking that I was going for a halo look.
Yeah, but you did
crown.
You did well. I could tell you were trying to aim and see if you can block it just right. But it was not distracting, but just a suggestion there.
Thank you.
Let's see, who else is, Karen, what did you think, Karen?
I thought the meeting was great. I truly enjoyed it. It's very similar to being in person at a meeting. I think I'm going to be a little challenged learning the technology on how to do that and in and out and have everything run as smoothly as you all did it tonight.
Good. Glad to have you. Hope that you, along with Bonnie, will return and get used to it. None of us did very well on the first time we joined an online club. Or here in Online Presenters, we have fumbled and we have false starts and done all sorts of stuff. Maybe we should have a meeting just on all the outtake of online presenters.
It'll be fun.
Bethany, how'd you feel coming in first time ever and playing a role too?
I loved it. I really did. I like this. It's like being at a meeting, like Bonnie said, because I also belong to two Toastmaster groups, and this is much better. I don't even have to leave the house. It works out well. Actually, I'm dog sitting, so I'm not at my house. I'm at my neighbor's house. So that's why I'm kind of like the positions are weird tonight. But, I loved it, and I loved hearing all the speeches. I thought you guys all used good hand motions, and it ran smoothly. So I enjoyed it, and I felt like I was there in person.
Great. Hope that you will come back again and visit again.
I will. I'm probably going to come back next week.
Well, a couple more visitors. We would love for you to join us at least a couple of times so you get a real sense of what's going on, and then you can make a decision. There's no rush. Diane, what do you feel?
Yeah, this is my second time with this club, and I'd like to join if it's possible. I don't know if you ask people to visit 3 times or that's my home club does that. But
all right, David. David is going to drop the link onto the chat box in terms of where to go on our website to join, and you can go directly there. Generally, we ask you to come join at least a couple of times, get to know what's going on. Some of you may decide to join the club as an additional club. Some of you may decide to transfer your membership. That's up to you. We are an events club. That means that we encourage you to have a regular club also. But if you have special cases, we were more than happy to entertain and talk more in detail in that regard. And our Lois had to go earlier. She is our VP of membership, and she will gladly give you even more information. So you will see
Okay, can
that
somebody send my email to her or something?
that'll be fine. And you can see that the join button, the join link is in the chat box. You can click on it now or save the chat there.
Oh, yeah, I see. All right.
All right, Rick, what did you think?
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to sit in on this meeting. I've been to a lot of Toastmaster meetings, but never one online. It is a bit challenging, but it's actually very exciting. And you can't see what I was doing down here, and I'm not going to start to tell you. But I will tell you that I like the challenge of doing an online presentation. I do a lot of webinars that I attend, and the challenge is, in some of them, is staying awake. So I think that the challenge of doing online presentation is to keep your audience involved, and I like that challenge. So overall, I want to thank Tracy for inviting me, and I look forward to attending again.
Excellent. When Magda was after giving her speech as an icebreaker, I wanted to stand up and give her a standing ovation, but then I realized, wait, I'm dressed appropriately, but I'm not too sure about anybody else, and I don't want to trigger anything since she already started talking about may not be so politically correct. I thought, okay, engaging humor, I think she's got that cover for tonight. But yes, Rick, it is a learning curve for all of us. There are things that becomes bigger than ever when we get right in front of the camera, and other things that sometimes we don't think about in face-to-face meetings and we take for granted. We have to explicitly make an effort with online, like keeping the pace, like keeping the energy, and things like that. As a side point, if any one of you found that you are on an online meeting, whether it be a club like this or at work or anything like that, and you're dozing off, quickly turn off your video so they can't see what you're doing. Number 2, jumping jacks. Get your blood going. Jump up and down, get your blood going, and then sit down, and then turn your video back on, and they don't know a thing of what you have just done because you just pump yourself back up. Just a little side note. All right, Jason, I know you're already going to be signing up for March. Good, bad, or ugly?
Very good. As I mentioned in the last couple of visits, it's a great group of people. I really enjoy the speakers. I'm glad to be part of the advanced club, which certainly is going to challenge me. And certainly things I want to do with my career, certainly work on webinars. I have a couple of questions. One, particularly, I guess, on Tracy's speech. When I was looking at her presentation, I was basing it on the slides. And I know that sometimes I've heard I think in her first evaluation, they were like, oh, I want to see your face. But I guess we're saying that as Toastmasters, but I just found it odd. I'm like, well, if she was giving a webinar, I wouldn't really be commenting on her physical movements. So I don't know if there's like the Toastmasters should preface that and say, okay, this is meant to be seen as slides only, or because I guess I'm not sure what we should be evaluated or not. So that's number one. And number two, I guess just be a little bit of feedback to be cognizant when to mute your microphone. I noticed a lot of people had their microphones on or hot, if you will, while the meeting was going on. It's like I hear people clapping or some side noises. So just a reminder for everyone to keep the mic off when you're not on.
Sure.
Yep. Let me answer your second question and pop back to the first question, and maybe David and others want to jump in. Number one, yes, mind your mic in terms of whether hot or not. Even if you're not making sound and you're typing, it will have that tapping noise to everybody. Now, some speaker have asked for an open mic because they want to hear people's reaction live. That's fine. But if you find that even though the speaker have requested open line and you're the one typing on notes or chat, yeah, mute yourself, because if not, it's going to be that really loud tapping noise no matter what you do. Part two of that answer, we usually ask the Toastmaster of the day will have the host control. But the Toastmaster of the day also have 15 million things to think about. The host controller is the one that can mute everybody. But it's a one click. But when you one click, that also you mute the main speaker too. So that's why if you have 25 people and 5 people are unmuted, so the host has to go, okay, which one do I want to mute? Because I don't want to have one button and mute everybody and cut off the speaker. So therefore, you're right, Jason. It is much better if the individual be cognizant about managing it. But every now and then we do have something that falls through the crack. The Toastmaster of the night evening would keep an eye on and listening for things to turn off. Go back to your question number 1. I would say it's all is good. Meaning if you are the speaker and you want the audience and the evaluator to focus on a specific issue, go ahead and verbalize that. Let us know, whether it be in the chat box or ahead of time, letting the evaluator know, hey, you know what? This is going to be a snippet of a half an hour speech I'm going to make. I'm only doing this 5 minutes. I really want to focus on X, Y, and Z. And that way the evaluator know what to focus for your benefit, because you guys came here not to get a checkbox, not to say, hey, I got all of these speeches fulfilled. You're here for something that will hopefully advance your career, what you're doing at church, what you're doing at nonprofits and things like that. Number 2, if the speaker have not given an explicit instruction in that regard, you also saw 3 evaluators today focus on somewhat differently, where Graham might say, hey, I'm looking at your slide and your face. Another person said, no, I was just looking at your face. I didn't even see the slide. Perfectly fine. That's why we want number of different points of view so that we hear, oh, I never thought of it that way. As a side point, we are used to doing PowerPoint for many of us. So when you do a slide and your face, it's going to be 2 different screens. So on the side, where to be small side. But for example, if one other option is actually turn my slide into graphics like this. So imagine that I'm speaking, this is slide number 1, and I'm sitting like this. And I put my notes right next to me. And so that I can go to slide number 2, and slide number 3, and slide number 4, that I'm keeping all of my notes and me at the same time. Now the trick of that is I'm actually have to create each slide as an image, load it all up into Ring Central, put it in order, so that when I'm talking, I'll click and click and click and click to the next one. But once you get that done ahead of time, then it's no different than doing PowerPoint slide, because when you do the PowerPoint, you can save as graphics, a JPEG. When you do a save as a JPEG, you can save the whole thing in JPEG, so you don't have to save one page at a time. You got 14 slides file, boom, one save, you got 14 images. You can upload all 14 into Ring Central or Zoom, that if you use Zoom, and you can do exactly what I did, but you just have to make sure that you know how to pace yourself where you are in terms of, hey, how much room do I have to show all these different things. So that's a long way of answering your question.
I thought Jason's makes a good point though too, because a lot of professional webinar formats, you do not see the speaker's video. You only see slides on it's talking over slides is the entire presentation. That's kind of the tradition that comes out of GoToMeeting. It really goes back to the point where the bandwidth was too low that you couldn't have video. So this format of the video chat is starting to become a little bit more popular in professional webinars as well. But I've done that. I've told people I'm going to be giving a webinar and nobody's going to see my face in this, so I'll turn off my camera for that. But it is something to communicate with the Toastmaster. I'm practicing for this specific purpose for that environment. But over time, I think this multi-party video format will become more common for other professional webinars as well.
Thank you.
We also, for some reason, the Toastmaster didn't get control of the mute button at the beginning. It was not until later on that the mute button.
That's because I had all those technical problems.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't press any button anywhere.
Oh, okay.
For a little while.
Okay, I wasn't sure why it wasn't happening. Okay, thank you. All right, good night.
All right, good night. Anyone else have questions? I can hang out for a few more minutes.
Roger, I think Bethany had a question that she put in the chat.
Is Bethany, you got a question about giving a speech next week, correct?
Yeah, I just got your response too.
Yeah, so just email me. I have to check and see if that is already filled or not, and then I'll work with you on that.
3 slots are already filled, Roger. I just checked.
Okay, if that's the case, then we'll talk some. Yeah, email me. We'll connect.
Perfect. Sounds good. We'll do.
All right. Okay, Bethany. I mean, Bonnie, looks like you already start moving your real estate there, and perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. You know, the ceiling light is only showing that